The auction hall smelled like old wood, dust, and memories that refused to fade, and when 12-year-old Emily Carter pushed open the heavy door by herself, every adult inside paused without knowing why, because grief has a way of announcing itself before words ever do. She was small for her age, wearing an oversized navy blue jacket that once belonged to her father, fallen police officer Daniel Carter, and her hands trembled as she stepped forward clutching a folded piece of paper like it was the last thread tying her to a world that had already taken too much from her. This was not a place for children, not a place for someone who had already buried a hero, yet there she stood, alone, walking into a retired police dog auction where loyalty was being sold with numbered paddles and raised hands. And before this story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when broken hearts refuse to give up, please take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because stories like this connect hearts across the world. Emily's mother had tried to stop her that morning, her voice tired and worn thin by months of unpaid bills and sleepless nights, but Emily had insisted, knowing that some promises don't belong to the living, they belong to the memory of those who died doing what they loved. Her father's police dog, a German shepherd named Max, had been retired after the incident that took Daniel's life, and now Max was being auctioned off because the department no longer had funds to care for him, and Emily had overheard conversations she was never meant to hear about how Max was becoming expensive, old, and inconvenient. Since her father's funeral, Emily had felt the house grow quieter every day, the walls echoing with absence, and Max had stopped visiting because the department kennel was too painful for her mother to drive past, but Emily remembered how Max used to lie at her feet while she did homework, how his ears would lift when her father laughed, how he had waited by the door for weeks after the funeral as if loyalty alone could reverse death. Inside the hall, the auctioneer's voice rolled on like distant thunder, but Emily barely heard it as cages lined the walls, each holding a dog with cloudy eyes and stiff joints, heroes reduced to inventory numbers. Max was at the end, older now, his muzzle grayed, his posture slower, but when Emily stepped closer, something ancient and unbroken stirred in him, his tail making a faint movement like a memory trying to breathe. Emily didn't have money, not really, just the few crumpled bills she had saved from birthdays and helping neighbors, nowhere near enough to compete with buyers looking for trained dogs at bargain prices, and the realization pressed on her chest until it hurt to breathe. As bidding started, numbers rose quickly, voices confident, detached, and Emily felt herself shrinking with every increase, her hope thinning until it was barely more than a whisper. She looked around at the adults, at their clean coats and casual expressions, and wondered how easily the world moved on from sacrifice, how quickly heroes became surplus. When the bidding reached an amount Emily could never match, her shoulders sagged, and that was when she did something no one expected, stepping forward into the open space with shaking legs and unfolding the paper she had carried all morning. It was not a speech, not a plea spoken aloud, because Emily didn't raise her voice, she raised the truth, holding up her father's folded commendation letter and the worn photograph of him kneeling beside Max after their last mission together, a moment frozen in time before sirens, before gunfire, before everything fell apart. The room changed then, not loudly, but deeply, like a breath held too long finally released, as the auctioneer faltered and the murmurs grew softer, and people began to notice the child standing where only bidders were meant to stand. Emily stood there silently, tears slipping down her face, not asking for pity, only standing as proof that love does not retire when a badge is folded and a flag is handed over. Somewhere in the crowd, a retired officer named Michael Harris recognized the jacket, remembered Daniel Carter's courage, and felt a weight settle on his chest as memories of his own years on the force came rushing back, of dogs who saved lives, of partners who never came home. The bidding slowed, then stopped, hands lowered, eyes turned away, and in that suspended moment, something rare happened, something no rulebook could account for, as Michael raised his hand not to bid against a child, but to end the auction entirely by covering the cost himself and insisting that Max be released to Emily without conditions. The hall fell silent again, but this time it wasn't grief that filled the space, it was reverence, and as Max was led out, he moved past strangers without interest until he reached Emily, stopping beside her with a certainty that needed no commands, leaning his aging body into hers as if he had finally found his way home. Outside, the afternoon sun broke through gray clouds for the first time in days, and Emily felt something inside her shift, not the pain leaving, but the heaviness lifting just enough to let hope in, because in saving Max, she hadn't erased her loss, she had honored it, proving that love survives even the hardest endings. Life didn't magically become easy after that day, bills still came, nights were still quiet, but Max slept by Emily's door again, and in the mornings, she found strength in caring for someone who had once protected the man she loved most, a living bridge between who she was and who she was becoming. Years later, people would say that the bravest person in that auction hall wasn't the fallen officer or the retired dog, but the child who walked in alone carrying nothing but love and memory and refused to let loyalty be sold off as forgotten property. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that compassion can change lives in ways money never will, please take a moment now to like this video, share it with someone who believes in honoring sacrifice, and subscribe so more stories like this can be told. And before this video ends, we have one special request for you. Please comment the word loyalty if you believe that love never retires, because every comment helps this story reach someone who needs it, and sometimes, the smallest acts of engagement can keep the biggest hearts beating just a little longer.